Hi everyone, welcome along to part 1 of my Altair 8800 build project. Right, this is the board that I picked up off eBay. I don't know who's made this board or how accurate it is. So I guess we're going to find out in time if it's going to work or if it isn't, and how much alteration it might take to make it work. Right, this is actually what it should look like. It's in fact one of Grant Stockley's replica boards. Make a special note of the white bodge wires on there and the size of that crystal. So I'm going to take a look at the one I've got in a little bit more detail. Right then, this is my board. Remember those white wires? I've highlighted where they go with these little pink circles here. Now, one thing to note is that there's etch resist over the pad, and it's like that on the other side of the board as well. You can see where the white wires go. One goes from there to there, then one goes from there to there, and the other two, which go over the other side of the board, start here and here, which is intriguing. And the other thing I've noticed is if we just go up a little bit here, remember where that huge crystal was? They've actually put in 2 pads for a normal size crystal, which might be quite handy because I've only got a small crystal. But this hole here, again, that's got etch resist all over it, is where the other leg would have gone for the larger crystal, which is all very intriguing. So it looks like we're going to have to scrape off this etch resist before we can solder the wires in.
Right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the sockets on here first. You probably can't see it, but the tops of the sockets have got a little notch on them to indicate the end where pin 1 is. The processor one's that way because it's facing to the right. Right, so here we go. Start off with a little one, stick that one in there. There's a little notch in the socket as well. Okay. Best way to do this, if you put a bit of tape over the top of the socket. Right, it's all nice and secure there now. I'll turn that over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder each corner. Right, where are we? Right, here we go. So I'll do that corner first. And the opposite corner. Right. Once you solder the corners, you take the tape off. Obviously, make sure it's you do get it right way round. If you have a look at the end of the IC, make sure it's completely square with the board. If it isn't square, what you can do is you can get your finger on the top of the IC and turn it over. You can heat that up until it's molten again and push it very gently upwards, and that'll flatten it out. But we're okay here, that's nice and square. So I'll finish soldering the other pins off. Best way to do it, if you're right-handed, is to go from right to left. Then the pad immediately behind you hasn't got any solder on it. It's less likely to cause any bridging then. Right, here we go. There's no need to go too mad, you don't have to put tons and tons of solder on there. There we go. Right, that's one side done. Turn it round. There we go, that's that one done. There's a fair amount of sort of flux a bit sort of left behind, but yeah, we'll clean that off later. So that's what it should look like anyway. Right, I've got a fair old few to solder in, so we'll cut there and I'll come back when I put the other ones in. Right, okay, got all the sockets in there, as you can see, just to prove I have actually soldered them. There you go. Right, well, I've also put some of the link wires on. You might notice here, just on this side. Let's put that out. There you go. That one there. There's another little one down there as well. Okay. Right. As I said before, the through holes that the link wires go in were full of, well, I thought they were covered in solder resist. It turns out they're actually full of solder resist. Right, so what I'll show you now how I actually managed to solder onto them. And the first bit of the process is to put a needle through the hole and give it a really good squeezing through on both sides. So at least it opens the hole up a bit. Tricky trying to find out where you are, but there you go, that's that one. So that clears it out, so at least you can get the wire through it. And at that point, somehow on the back side, you've got to get, see it, you see it's covered in solder resist there. Maybe a little bit too small, but you need to get rid of that, otherwise obviously you can't solder anything. So what I found was the easiest way to do it is if you get a scalpel and scrape inwards towards the hole, after a little bit of time you can actually remove the resist without doing any damage, hopefully. Right, so I'll just finish that off. Okay. Quick clean out with a pin again. Right, it looks fairly clean. I'll give it a little wipe over though, just in case it's got grease all over it. So a little bit of PCB solvent, a little wipe over there. Right, fairly clean now. Get that out of the way. Right, I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but there is a little tiny, oh, I'll just get a pen. There you go, we've now got a pad there that is actually bare. Right, so what we'll do, get our link wire, and we'll put this where it should go. That's one end, that's the other end. Wire all taped down and both ends are poking through. Not one up there. Right, let's just solder those off and then hopefully it should do the job. It's in the right position where I can solder it easy. Okay. That's one end. Let's move over to the other side. There we go. Right, just a case of clipping those ends off now. Clip that off. And clip that one off. Right. Tape off. Straighten this up a little bit. This will get wedged under the capacitors fairly shortly, so it won't look quite so much of a mess. Right, there we go. Right, so that's all the link wires, or bodge wires as I'd rather call them. They're all in place. What I was going to do next was put the capacitors on. What I'm going to use are these little ceramic bead ones. Obviously if you want the real vintage look, you'd need to use disc ceramic capacitors. The trouble with the disc ceramic ones is they'll stick up quite high off the top of the board, and they're prone to cracking as well. because obviously if they're sticking up and you bash them, you can end up cracking the case. So if you really want to go for the vintage look, I would suggest that you put the capacitors in last. Right, so I think all the pen again. Virtually all these SC ones, all the way from SC1 up to SC20, they're all 0.1 of a microfarad. So it's just a matter of just chucking a load of them in there, really. Right, let's just put one in here to start with. Pop that in there. And then we'll stick a little bit of tape over it. Stop it falling out. And hopefully we can just solder it up. Away. Okay. So there we go. Right, there we go. That's the first of the capacitors in there. So I've got another 20 of those to put in now. Right, okay, I've got all the ceramic capacitors on here now, and I've also gone ahead and I've put the resistors in as well. See them over here. There's quite a few resistors on there. I think there's about 50 odd of them in total. There's some up here, there's some here, there's some here, and there's some there. Right, so plenty of those on there. Right, things to note. All these ceramic capacitors look very similar, and most of them are the same, but be careful, because 4 of the capacitors up here, C3, C4, C5 and C6, are actually different values in order. They're 0.1 of a micro, 10 puff, 100 puff and 20 puff, so obviously you need to be careful with that. Something I didn't notice earlier, there's another link on the end of the processor there. Same problem as before, it's full of solder resist. I've had to clean that out as I showed you before, so that's another one to note. Also, when you put the resistors in, you have to omit R31 and R34. I think that's all the notes I had. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the components on. Hopefully when I come back we should have a completed board. Right, got all the components on there now, as you can see, hopefully. Clean the backside up as well, got all the flux and crap off it. The connectors here is still missing. I haven't actually got that, but we won't need that for a little while, so I won't worry about that too much. Right, things to note, there's a couple of Zener diodes, D1 and D2. D1's a 12 volt, D2's a 5.1. Make sure you get the band on the end of the diode. It might be pretty difficult to see on the camera, but there's a mark on the board with a line, so make sure they're the right way around. The crystal I've put in, I've just put a little bit of double-sided tape under that to stop it wobbling about. Other things to note, the other capacitors are electrolytics, so they're obviously polarised, so make sure you get those around right way as well. The board's actually got little marks on it. It says positive there and positive there, and you can see these ones as well. These have got positive and positive. So just make sure they're around the right way, otherwise bad things will probably happen. Well, they will happen actually. This little transistor down here in the corner, it's any transistor on the board. The original one doesn't exist anymore, so you'll notice that this diode's actually facing in completely opposite direction to the silk screen on the board. That's because the one I've substituted with, its emitter and collector are the other way around. The base is still in the middle, luckily, so it's just a matter of spinning it round. I've put a 2N4410 in there. Right. The only other thing, in the manual there's a little mod that you have to do. This little capacitor here, I've had to drill 2 little holes. One goes through the ground here, and a little hole that just goes through the board basically. If I turn the board over, you can see where that's where the ground connection is, and this one goes to this link wire, and that goes up to 70 on the bus there, which previously wasn't connected to anywhere. It seems to be something to do with memory protect. I'll have to look up exactly what it does, but from what I've read elsewhere, very few boards use memory protect anyway, so I'm not sure how necessary that modification is, but there you go, it's on there now. Right, so that's it, completed board. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.